Hello, brothers and sisters of comic book land. Welcome to the real Short Box. My name is Kevin.
I'm Donald.
I'm fucking Jarrett.
Wow.
Deal with it.
Wait, you're fucking Jarrett, or you are...
Yeah, my name's Ronnie. I'm fucking Jarrett. No, I'm just Jarrett, guys. I'm sorry I was so abrasive.
That's quite an adjective, man.
Yeah.
Describe yourself.
That's
My
awkward.
goodness.
Yeah.
Kinda very
I'm
awkward.
here. Reggie's not.
Are you saying that because you're pumped up
I like Reggie.
Are you saying that because you're pumped up for today's special episode?
Yeah, I'm feeling special. I'm feeling valiant.
Yes.
Did that work at all?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, why not?
We're doing another one of those comic book publisher history episodes, and today, indeed, we're doing the history of Valiant Comics.
Mm-hmm. And how?
Yes, we are.
So, let's get started.
Let's get started. Now, real quick, the precursor to the beginning of Valiant Comics starts with Marvel Comics itself, with Jim Shooter, who was the editor-in-chief.
Jim Shooter McGee,
Jim
they called
Shooter.
him.
Now, I did a lot of research about Jim Shooter.
I know you did, and I will allow you to jump into that in a moment. But just real quick, Jim Shooter was the editor-in-chief back in the late 70s through most of the 80s as well, until about 1987 when he was let go at Marvel. Mm-hmm. He was a very known for being a very a taskmaster of a man, someone who kept things in line.
Mimic powers of other. He could mimic abilities. He had photographic
He
reflexes.
could throw a shield
Yeah.
at writers.
Just like Captain America could.
Yeah.
Yes, he was a hell of a manager, streamlined things, was responsible for many of the miniseries there, like Secret Wars. And basically, he had issues with some of the staff members. Some people just didn't like his approach, his managing style. Mm-hmm. So things happened behind the scenes, and he was pushed out in 1987. And then in 1989, he teamed up with Steve Masarsky to form Voyager Communications with some German investors.
Mazarsky was a lawyer, right? He was a business guy.
Yeah, he was a business guy.
Right.
And they formed Valiant Comics in 1989. Now, what's interesting real quick about Masarsky is that he had the rights to produce the Marvel live-action characters for a brief period of time for only $25,000.
Wow.
Yes.
Damn. Missed the boat on that,
He
didn't
missed
he?
the boat because he only had the rights for a certain amount of time, but he wasn't able to get anything going, so...
Right. Well, also, the effects back then would have sucked.
Yeah, it would have sucked back then.
Yeah.
And also, real quick, another interesting point was that not too long after Jim Shooter was let go, he tried to purchase Marvel Comics itself when it was auctioned off.
Oh.
But it didn't work. He came in second behind Ron Perlman, who was the running Revlon.
And
Revlon.
Hellboy. Did help? Oh.
No, that's Ron Perlman.
Yes, Ron Perlman.
All those Pearl people are the same to me.
Whoa, that's racist.
Well, Mazarsky also, just real quick, he first owned, prior to the comic book business, he operated an artist management company handling artists such as the Allman Brothers,
Whoa.
the Wailers. He's responsible for launching the career of Girls Just Want to Have Fun people, Cyndi Lauper.
Nice.
And then he next operated an entertainment law practice. I worked in an entertainment law firm for many years as an admin, and it was pretty chill, I'm not going to lie. And he had clients such as Nintendo, Cabbage Patch Dolls, the Psychedelic Furs, Aerosmith, and Willie Mays. That is like all of spot. That's not even just like music. That's like all across the entertainment world. Kudos to you, Mr. Mazarsky.
Mazarsky.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to talk about the man. I thought he deserved his respect.
Oh, not a problem.
Yeah.
And I'll let Donald talk a little bit about Jim Shooter, since he's a big part of this, especially the first half of Valiant Comics history.
Yeah. A little bit about Jim Shooter. He's a big guy. He's a big guy right now, anyway.
How tall is he?
He's tall. He's really friggin' tall. He was born in 1951. He was an occasional fill-in artist, editor, and publisher for various comic books. At the age of 13, in mid-1965, he wrote and drew stories featuring the Legion of Superheroes
Knew it, yeah.
and sent them in to DC Comics. On February 10th, 1966, he received a phone call from Mort Wessinger, who wanted to purchase the stories Shooter had sent.
How old is he?
Can you imagine that? You were 13 years old when you sent these stories in, and DC's like, we like what you wrote.
That is amazing.
We'd like
That's
to purchase these.
Insane. Yeah.
Boy, I would gloat to my school friends so quickly. Like,
Yeah.
guys, guess what?
First of all, you'd think, like, nowadays, they'd probably just steal the stories and say
pretty
that they
much.
never heard of you.
Yeah, pretty
true.
much. Pretty much.
But they were, called a 13-year-old kid and was like, hey, we like your stories. We'd like to buy them from you, kid.
That's amazing. It's so sidebar. I'm reading to my daughter The Outsiders right now, written by S.E. Hinton. She wrote that when she was 15 years old and got her publishing deal on her graduation day from high school. I just these stories just make me feel like a fucking loser. So thank you, Jim Shooter, and thank you, S.E. Hinton.
Motherfuckers.
Love your work, guys.
On February 10th, he received a phone call, as I said, and basically he wanted to purchase his stories and commissioned Shooter to write a Supergirl and Superman story. Quite a few, actually. Wessinger eventually offered Shooter a regular position on Legion and wanted Shooter to come to New York to spend a couple of days in his office. Shooter was only 14 and lived in Pittsburgh at the time and had to wait till school was in recess, after which he went to New York with his mother, spurred in part by the need to support his family financially. I guess his father was struggling a little bit.
Wow.
His father was a steel worker, and the Shooter saw comic books as a means for helping, economically speaking. All right, now we're going to jump into the Marvel section of Jim Shooter. In mid-1970s, Marvel Comics was undergoing a series of changes in the position of editor-in-chief. Roy Thomas stepped down from the post to focus on writing, and the succession of editors, including Len Wein, Marv Wolfman, Jerry Conway, and Archie Goodwin, took the job during a relatively short span of time, only to find the task too daunting as Marvel continued to grow and add new titles and a larger staff to turn out material. On January 2nd, 1976, guys, Shooter joined the Marvel staff as an assistant editor and writer. With the quick turnover at the top, Shooter rapidly found himself rising in the ranks, and in 1978 succeeded Archie Goodwin to become Marvel's 9th editor-in-chief.
Mm-hmm.
During this period, publisher Stan Lee relocated to Los Angeles to better oversee Marvel's animation, television, and film projects, leaving Shooter largely in charge of the creative decision-making at Marvel's New York City headquarters. Although there were complaints among some of the that Shooter imposed a dictatorial style on the bullpen, he cured many of the procedural ills at Marvel, successfully managing to keep a line of books on schedule, which was a big problem for Marvel at the time. He added new titles and developed new talent. During that run, Marvel enjoyed some of its best successes. Chris Claremont, John Byrne, they did a run on Uncanny X-Men. Byrne's work on Fantastic Four. Frank Miller did his Daredevil run. Mm-hmm. Walt Simonson did the Norse mythology and Thor. Roger Stern did the Avengers and the Amazing Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. Some big things.
And he kept them all on schedule.
He kept them on schedule, and what he really, I think, I remember reading about that he really hammered home was all the books, it was the Marvel Universe. So he wanted all the books, no matter what book you were reading, to feel cohesive with the other one. So if something happened in a Marvel team-up with the Beast, and then, say, an X-Men issue came out a month later, that might have referenced that Marvel team-up story. So it's like there was a real history and timeline going on.
And it wreaked havoc with the writers, because they had to go in and be like, okay, so I have to reference something somebody else
Where
did.
is so-and-so left off?
Oh, this is ridiculous. I just want to write what I want to write. And why can't I, and that created a bit of an issue, because Shooter saw it from a reader's standpoint and not from a writer. And the writer felt stymied. They felt like they were constricted because they didn't have the open format, the open flow that they would normally have.
Mm-hmm. So you think someone like Chris Claremont was probably had a hissy fit?
I don't know so much Chris Claremont, because he was kind of brought on during that Shooter era. He might have appreciated that more. And also, he did a huge run, so if he didn't like it...
He would have left a long time ago. Okay.
Yeah, DC would have poached him for sure.
Yeah.
In 1981, Shooter brought Marvel into the lucrative comic book specialty shop market with Dazzler #1.
I almost bought that the other day.
Yeah?
I did get it pretty cheap.
Why didn't you?
Because I'll grab it when I want to.
Yeah. It features a disco-themed heroine with ties to the X-Men based upon an unproduced motion picture set to star Bo Derek.
Wow.
Yeah, how about that?
Oh, I'd love for them to go back in time and make a Bo Derek Dazzler movie.
That would have been cool.
The first issue of this series was sold only through specialty stores, bypassing the then standard newsstand spin rack distribution route altogether, as a recognition by Marvel of the growing comic shop sector.
It's a pretty glam cover, too. It's almost like that, looks like a real person kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool. And all the other issues after that were done in newsstand, but Dazzler was the first direct sales only ongoing series from a major publisher. Other Marvel titles, such as Marvel Fanfare, Kazar, things like that soon followed under that realm of that type of sales. Now we're going to get into the Valiant Shooter and his investors, of course, you said, they got together and they published comics under Valiant Comics banner. They entered the market in 1989 with comics based on Nintendo and WWF licensed characters.
That's right.
In fact, I bought one of those. It was a Super Mario Brothers comic from Valiant. I still have it somewhere.
Is this it right here? This one?
No, it was a different one.
A different one? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
different issue. But that's definitely the same series. 2 years later, Valiant entered the superhero market with a relaunch of the Gold Key Comics characters. These were big ones, guys. Magnus Robot Fighter. Shooter brought many of Marvel's creators to Valiant, including Bob Layton, Barry Windsor Smith, as well as industry veterans such as Don Perlin. Valiant also established Knob Row, taking in raw talent and teaching them how to make comics Valiant style.
Right.
They launched many careers, most notably Joe Quesada.
That guy went and did like a stint at Marvel, right?
He's now the editor-in-chief, I believe.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
How about that, huh? Occasionally over the years, Shooter was required to fill in as penciler in various books, and he wrote and oversaw as editor. During his period as Valiant's publisher, money and talent were often at a premium, and Shooter was sporadically forced to pencil a story. To conceal this fact, he drew under the pseudonym of Paul Creddick, which is the name of his brother-in-law.
Wait, somebody right now is like, Paul Creddick was my favorite artist.
It was Jim Shooter!
It was Jim Shooter?
He was ousted from Valiant in 1992, a company he helped found. Him and several of his co-workers went on to found Defiant Comics in early 1993. Despite some initial success with the first title, the new company failed to secure an audience in the increasingly crowded direct sales market, and they folded after 13 months of publishing. In fact, I have that first comic book that they're talking about.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It wasn't very great. In 1995, Shooter founded Broadway Comics, which was an offshoot of Broadway Video, the production company that produces Saturday Night Live.
Yes, naturally.
But the line folded after its parent company sold the properties to Golden Books.
Fuck.
Yeah, and this is like, he just keeps bouncing back and forth. In 2007, actually, he worked for DC and he wrote Legion of Superheroes again.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
and that was the first time I ever was interested in Legion of Superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was good when Jim Shooter, I thought, when he wrote
How
it.
weird is that? Writing it when you're 13 and then writing it and you're probably like, what is he, 50s at that point?
Yeah,
or?
50s at that point, I think. Yeah, crazy.
Jesus.
In 2009, Dark Horse Comics announced at the San Diego Comic-Con International that Shooter would oversee the publication of new series based on Gold Key comic characters. Turok, Dr. Solar, Man of the Atom,
Wait,
Magnus
so
Robot
Dark Horse
Fighter.
got the rights to those characters?
Yeah, because they're Gold Key comic characters.
Right.
And they're licensed, so they could purchase the rights over,
Right.
and Valiant at that
Was
point.
debunked.
They were
Defunct.
defunct. And,
Debunked. They were debunked for their conspiracy theories about Valiant Comics, which we'll get into.
But Valiant,
Kennedy.
Valiant Comics then tried to sue, saying that they were going to try to get the Gold Key characters, but because Shooter said he was involved, they gave the rights over to Dark Horse instead. So they tried to sue Shooter for that. I don't know how that worked out as far as them trying to do that, but it didn't work out, period.
Right.
They ended up just, dropping the lawsuit.
Real quick, did you guys ever play Turok the Dinosaur Hunter on, was it Super Nintendo?
I did.
Such a fun fucking game.
Yes, it was.
I remember I found like a cheat code and it got like all the guns and like one of the
Yep.
guns just like blew up the whole screen. I
Yeah.
was like, this is fucking awesome.
It was a fun game. I think
Yeah.
they made one or two more later for like another system or something, but they should bring that back. Actually.
It was awesome. It was like first person point of view.
Yeah,
and you
it'd be
were
cool if
just
they did that with Magnus too, like
Yeah.
fighting robots
oh,
and shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be awesome in a futuristic world.
Especially with all the VR stuff now too.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Oh,
Yeah.
it probably depends. It might be tied up with some legal mumbo jumbo, because Acclaim Entertainment had the rights to that before they got sold off.
Yeah, but I have the rights to dinosaurs.
Do you
Oh.
now?
Yes. If anybody ever wants to use dinosaurs in a film, I'm crazy rich.
I thought Michael Crichton would probably have that.
Crazy rich. No, Crichton
No.
asked me.
Oh, okay. All right.
I charge $5 a dinosaur, and
That's not bad.
I'm not a good businessman.
Apparently not.
Trademark dinosaurs.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's my whole Shooter thing. I'm sorry I went off on a little tangent there, but
No, it's interesting.
That's okay.
That guy's an interesting dude.
Did you want to add something to this, Jarrett, before I continue the history?
No. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm-
You probably jump in when I go through some of the other heroes that Valiant came up with in the early 90s. And as you mentioned, right after the Nintendo and WWF deals, They had the characters of Exo Manowar, Harbinger. You already mentioned Magnus Robot Fighter, Shadow Man, which I know is something that's deep to Jared's heart.
I do have a little bit something about Shadow Man.
Okay.
Actually, just a quick little brief history of the character. I thought it was interesting. Jack Boniface is he's the character of Shadow Man. He's playing a saxophone for a packed jazz bar deep in the heart of New Orleans one night. A successful musician and hopeless romantic, Jack dreams of a record deal, but until then is happy to realize that a beautiful woman named Lydia has been coming to the bar every night to watch him play. That night they leave the bar together. Ooh la la. They go to her residence, where Jack consumes a drugged drink and falls unconscious, believing this is his last moment on Earth. In the morning he wakes to find Lydia gone and a strange mark on his chest. Later that night, Jack stalks the streets, compelled by an urge to hunt Lydia down and take revenge.
Jesus.
Yeah. He finds a discarded carnival mask on the street and inexplicitly is drawn to it. He picks it up and hears the cries of a woman being assaulted in the back alley. Now, not because he's put on the mask, but he just hears it coincidentally. He confronts the attacker and finds that he has superhuman strength and speed, with which he is able to frighten the attacker into fleeing. Jack's housekeeper, Nettie, who happens to be a voodoo practitioner, of course, senses the change in Jack. She explains that something evil in the night ripped open the doorway to his soul. Now whenever shadows fall, his soul comes out, takes over, and goes hunting. She tells him in voodoo talk, shadow means soul. You the shadow man. Nettie feels the presence of a Loa, or spirit, named Basu Koblaman in Jack. Basu has become Jack's Meitete, the Loa who stands for him. Nettie tells him that
Know your voodoo history, people.
I know, I'm trying here, guys. Nettie tells him that although ignorant people think Basu is evil, in truth Basu embodies a rage against evil and is not possessing Jack, but helping him. So, Nettie, feeling that Jack's newborn nighttime identity of Shadow Man is part of his destiny, makes Jack an outfit for his new identity, which bears the image of his soul stepping out and 3 spikes of light piercing the darkness, just like Basu's 3 horns. Putting on the mask, Jack roams the streets and confronts violent criminals. So that's Shadow Man in a nutshell.
You know, just your basic... That's the thing about the Valiant stories, is they were all, like, very convoluted, because they were either old characters,
Yeah.
or even, like I'm looking at Rai, was, like, this hardcore, like, futuristic Japanese... Was it Japanese, I think? Take on, like, the future of Japan. I mean, it goes, like, hardcore in depth.
Did you ever pick up that issue 0 back in the day?
No, which is what Valiant is one of the first to start.
Yes.
The 0 books.
Yes.
Which now are kind of common, but...
Yeah, thanks to Marvel.
Yeah, thanks to Marvel, but, like... it was always... I remember for me, it was always, like... Not just in Valiant, but, like, in any comic, it was always like, wait, did the 0 come first? Or did it... Because they usually came, like, right after. Sometimes they came before.
Well, with 0 Hour with DC, they rebooted their entire line, and every issue started with 0.
Like, I was just looking at the old Starman, James Robinson Starman, started with 0. Like, actually did start with 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. And yeah, so they were Valiant was definitely on the cutting edge of marketing comics, of like, and I don't want to say the word in a negative way, but exploiting some things, you know, as far as like the 0, like what's another way to get cash? Hey, we have a number 1, let's have a number 0.
Gold and silver cardstock covers embossed.
Oh my god, they were huge in that.
Yeah, they did that. I think they had a linear or something similar to a linear.
Lenticular or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Something similar to that.
Let me ask you guys, when Valiant hit the scene, this was early 90s, so we had kind of was it pre-image or like
pre-image, but they kind of started exploiting on the scene around the same time.
Right.
Yeah, very close.
Were you guys... I know where I was at. Were you guys Valiant collectors?
A couple here, a little bit.
I bought them. I never read them. I'm going to be honest. But I bought them. I bought them like crazy.
Really?
You did?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because, like, again, my comic shop had the 10-cent box.
Oh, okay.
And when books didn't sell, they'd throw them in there.
So you scooped them out of there.
So, yeah, I would just scoop up issue after issue out of that 10-cent box.
Never did.
See, for me...
No.
Nope. They just never pulled me in. Exo Manowar looked cool. The only one that looked cool was, what was it? Deadshot? Not Deadshot. Bloodshot.
Yeah, Bloodshot was pretty cool.
He looked cool, but I literally bought... That was the only book I bought, and that was just because he looked cool. And I never read it.
Yeah,
Who was the one I got? It was the guy that would Mirage, I think was his character's name, if I'm correct.
Okay.
And he was like a dream character. Like he would dream, and the hero would form out of him. He was like I don't know if he was Chinese or Japanese or something, but he was I will say that Valiant was very ethnically diverse.
yes. Matter of fact,
Yeah,
they were known for that back then.
Yeah, very, very, which was cool. I mean, I didn't go, oh my god, there's somebody I don't recognize in the mirror on the cover. I didn't care. I just thought like I bought a lot of these issues because they looked cool.
Right.
Like the Bloodshot one, I think the 0 issue, if I recall, had that amazing like gold foil background.
Everything was shiny.
Yeah, it was
shiny.
so
Shiny
cool.
But I remember like looking at characters like, and they might have been great, but as a kid, I remember going like Archer and Armstrong. This just looks like two homeless people. Like, what is this book?
Yeah.
Like,
Also, Eternal Warrior, which Frank Miller did some art for initially.
that's right, Eternal Warrior. Right.
That's true. Yeah.
And speaking of the 0 issues, when you guys talking about that, do you remember they did this 18-part mega crossover called Unity, where they introduced Archer and Armstrong and Eternal Warrior? So that was like a big thing back then, almost a way to compete with DC and Marvel's big crossovers.
And again, this is the guy that created the crossover.
That's right.
Going in, building a whole universe, and then creating a crossover. Spectacular work.
Yep, him and Bob Layton did most of the work, I would say.
Yeah.
They're like the the brains behind the operations. So to
Yeah,
speak.
Layton left with him.
And after the Layton left with him, really?
Yeah, because I think he was on Marvel.
They left Marvel together. Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of that happening. Also, at the end of that Unity crossover was the creation of, like we were saying, Bloodshot, Ninjak, who we've talked about before, Hard Corpse, The Second Life of Dr. Mirage.
That's it. Second Life,
And Time Walker was another one, which I've never heard of.
I don't remember Time Walker. That must have been near the end.
Ninjak, I remember.
I know The Second Life of Dr. Mirage was near the end, too, if I recall. Then it didn't last too long. Then they did something else, right? Like a Death something or whatever.
Deathmate.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that's it.
Which was with Image, right?
Yeah, so it's Crossover Ridge. And interestingly enough, also some people who were sick of Marvel decided to leave and start their own company. But they had a slightly different way of going about things, where Valiant was trying to be like, a traditional company with a shared universe. Image was like, multiple companies were kind of like a confederation,
Well, Image was also all about talent.
Yeah, so it was pure talent.
Valiant
artists, all the artists.
Right.
Jim Shooter was like actually an executive, a manager who knew how to bring things together.
Valiant was like a new business starting and then bringing in the talent.
Yes.
Image was the talent and then forming the business off the talent.
And then bringing their friends in who were talent and working with them or under them.
And it was an interesting mix. You can see the stark differences.
Yes.
Especially in the characterizations and stuff when you read. And if you look at Deathmate came in what? That was like a money grab. They came in how many different colors? It was like a foil cover, and they had one that was red.
Red, black, blue, and yellow.
Yeah, that's right. And then they made a rare gold one, I believe, if I recall.
I just remember covers. It was like Exo Manowar and the Wildcats, and it was like everybody was just mixed together, and don't remember the story at all. That was another one I bought just because I was like, cool, they're crossing over.
Yeah, and the purpose was because Solar would meet and fall in love with Void from Wildcats, and that's where all this started. Like, the relationship would cause reality to reform and create a single universe. So there's supposed to have been 6 parts to it. And, of course, the issue is that, as you know, back during that time in the early 90s, books weren't coming out on time. Mm-hmm. And on this end, it was really mostly Image's fault.
I'm sure it was Image's fault. Shooter was losing his shit.
Yeah, it was mostly Image's fault. So this kind of hurt the whole venture. And plus, they didn't do a good job of communicating with each other, so they understood which, the characterizations, how to do the characters properly, study the characters.
Right. Whenever Image would come together as a group, like all their characters, they're notorious for never finishing anything.
Like Image United.
Yeah, or a darker Image, I believe,
we're probably like 70 years old by the time we see the end of that.
The only good crossover Image story I remember liking, and I was actually probably the most I was ever into Image, was Extreme Prejudice. Because they actually really had a history of, they had everybody, like Prophet was a big part of it, Supreme,
Prophet,
I think Youngblood, Brigade. They actually really made it, it was the most streamlined story. Prophet came in issue number 2 of Youngblood. He was purple. Right. He was like this big warrior dude.
He was Liefeld creation, if I recall. And then Moon Knight, back in the 90s, Moon Knight, nobody cared anything about Moon Knight. And then this new artist started writing with issue number 55, I believe. It was Stephen Platt.
Right. Yeah.
And the artwork was like something no one's ever seen. And everybody just lost their shit and went out to find this issue. In fact, I saw it, and I think I called Kevin or texted him or something at the time, and I said, they want $100 for Moon Knight number 55 for the first Stephen Platt.
No problem.
And I was just laughing because it's like, at best, a $20 book. At best. Because it's just it's just the art for a guy that's no longer in the business, really. You don't hear anything about him. But he was so hot that Liefeld got him
to do profit.
Right. and launch that book. Yeah.
Now, one thing that's interesting about this particular crossover series is that the issues were going for $4.95. I almost forgot about that.
Yeah, that's pricey.
I mean,
Holy
back then.
Shit, right.
Now, imagine us as
like,
kids.
we have to pay for our card stock.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine as kids, like you can only buy like one book per week or something like that. Yeah. You're like, no way, you gonna buy it $4.95.
I could get 3 X-Men books for this motherfucker.
Exactly.
And I said motherfuckers then because that was the 90s.
And this book was representative and a metaphor for what was going on during that period of time. This was kind of like the end of the comics boom. Like, speculators were starting to get out because a lot of people were buying, as you know, different books and hoping it's going to be worth $1 million down the road. Mm-hmm. And
so dumb.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then on top of that, like we talked about before, books are coming in late from publishers, pissing people off. So
Valiant was like sorry to interrupt, but Valiant was like the opposite of all that probably because of Shooter's influence on all that. Valiant had so much product coming out.
Yeah, in the initial beginning, they were just on top of things, especially when Jim Shooter was in charge. Yes, everything was.
And to this fucking day, and I know you guys know this, when you go to like a 50-cent bin, like a quarter bin that they still have, riddled with Valiant comics.
Yes.
Still to this day, like I've never seen so many overproduced, like you can't give Valiant comics away, like the original stuff.
Like if you order something off eBay, sometimes they'll throw in a free Valiant comic, and you're like, gee, I'll wipe my ass with that. Thanks.
Yeah.
But something happened, right, to Valiant? Like, what was the big thing that, like, Acclaim, it changed over or something at some point?
Yes, not too long after Jim Shooter was fired and Bob Layton took over as editor-in-chief.
Do we know why Shooter was fired?
There have been so many reasons. Some say, the investor group, they wanted to kind of like take his shares away for themselves. They were looking at this is the peak.
Oh, okay. Probably that's it. It had to do with the fact that the boom, the bubble had burst. They were scrambling, trying to figure out any way to keep the company afloat,
right?
And then profit from it, so they could leave and just let everything fall.
Yeah, because aside from Shooter and Mazarsky, it was just investors.
Yes,
Yeah.
You have to understand these were venture capitalists. They're just looking in to come in, make a little bit of money, and then get out. They weren't really as serious about the long-term pitch that Jim Shooter had. Hey, I want this to last for decades.
Right.
They weren't really looking at it that way, so they had to, do what they do, conspire, and
it was another business, like we were just saying, another business. So Valiant was all under Voyager Communications. That was like their company underneath Valiant. So in 1994, that's when Acclaim Entertainment purchased them.
$65 million.
Right. So
wow, that's huge.
And Acclaim was smart though, because they were using it as a way to create, because they were a video game company.
That's
right. They were using it to
created a number of video games based on the Valiant properties. They did a Shadow Man one, Turok the Dinosaur Hunters we just talked about, Armorines, Project Swarm,
Heavy Metal.
They did this one. Do you remember that? Yeah, Heavy Metal. They did an Iron Man and Exo Manowar video game. So I don't know how, I don't know how they did that one.
Wow.
But yeah. Which featured Valiant's Exo Manowar alongside Marvel's Iron Man.
I don't know that one at all, but I want to play it.
Yeah. So yeah, in 2000...
I'm gonna ask Louis if he has it. My friend Louis, our pal Louis.
Good chance.
Louis, you know who you are. He has a bunch of these like random video games. He keeps like, oh, do you remember this game or that game? And I'd be like, no. And he's like, I have it.
Those like super obscure ones. Do you have
Louis,
the Goonies 2 video game on Nintendo?
Yeah, if you have the obscure Exo Iron Man one, please let me know, because I'd love to play it.
I think I remember seeing it. It was like the tail end of Super Nintendo. It was like the end of the line kind of thing. And they're like, throw out these Acclaim games.
Right, writing was on the wall at that point. But they also did, if I'm correct, they did like Sliders, property based off the television
show.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, they did. I think that was Acclaim that did that. They did a bunch of mini-series about them.
Right.
Which I thought was really cool. It was like that was around the time when Topps Comics existed.
Topps.
And Topps got the
Everybody
rights
just trying to cash in on shit. That's what it was. It was just
Topps got the rights to X-Files, and they were doing that, and then Mars Attacks, and a few other properties. Some of the Jack Kirby old ones, like Bombast and Night Glider or whatever the hell they were called.
Right.
You know, some of the ridiculous ones that no one wanted. Topps got.
What's crazy is we were talking about the Golden Key characters. How many times the rights to like several of these characters passed around to different companies?
Oh yeah, I think the Mighty Samson is still with Dynamite, if I'm correct.
Well, and DreamWorks Animation bought some of this stuff in 2012, and I don't even know if they still have it anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that would be cool if DreamWorks went out with like a Magnus Robot Fighter type thing or something, you know,
Right.
a little more adult-like animated version.
And yes, and as time continued during this period of time, the comic book boom had ended. Things were going to hell, and Acclaim had bought Valiant, and then they decided to reboot the series and change the characters drastically to a point where they just eliminated the name, became Acclaim Comics. But they're always just trying to milk those characters for the video game properties. That's what it's really all about. They weren't really doing much.
They didn't care about the comics.
Yeah,
not
because
so much.
even Turok was, like I was saying, such a fun game, but there was no story in it. It was just literally you went around in prehistoric times as Turok fighting dinosaurs. I mean, that was literally it. You just fought dinosaurs and slashed them up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Now I got a cool key trivia for you that Donald will enjoy. In 1996, guess who the editor-in-chief was of Acclaim Comics?
No clue.
Fabian Nicias.
Son of a bitch! No wonder they went
Donald's
under.
arch nemesis.
No wonder they went under.
Fabian.
He gave some-
Nicias.
He gave some new backstories to all the characters.
Yeah,
at
just
X-Men
ruined
War,
them. Ruined them all.
Bloodshot, Shadow Man,
What a
Ninjak,
surprise.
to make them more video game friendly.
Oh, motherfucker. Sell out, sell out, sell out.
Now, who do you? I mean, obviously.
Son of a bitch, I knew it.
But interestingly enough, he did go out of his way to find the best talent to work on this bastardized version. He went and got Mark Waid, Garth Ennis, and Kurt Busiek to work on X-Men of War, Shadow Man, and Ninjak during that time. But of course, they weren't sticking to the original versions of the characters.
Did you say Garth Ennis?
Yes, Garth Ennis.
Wow. That's
Yes, sir.
crazy.
Now you like them, huh?
No, now I'm like, what the no, I'm sure these are all paychecks. These are straight
Oh
up
yeah,
paychecks.
yeah. Some people were getting paid pretty good actually.
No, these are straight up paychecks.
Acclaim was actually pretty good about that. Acclaim actually did pay, people to come in. Matter of fact, give me a second. Let me go
Quantum and Woody. I forgot about
Quantum
them.
and Woody.
back. Quantum and Woody.
Yeah.
Now, wait, I gotta, while you're looking
They're
at
making a
that-
movie, I think, out of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, or a TV series, something. One
Yeah,
or the
matter of
other.
fact, here, perfect example. John Ostrander,
Suicide Squad.
among others,
alum.
was paid $20,000 an issue.
What the fuck?
Whoa!
Yes.
That's insanity.
He worked on Eternal Warrior, and he was getting paid 20 G's an issue.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
That's
There's,
insane.
What?
Dan Jurgens worked on Solar. Ron Mars worked on X-Man Wars. So these guys were getting paid. So Acclaim,
They had video game money. That's what
Yep,
it was.
that's why.
And
Totally
they were
nailed
just,
it.
we'll pay you
you know what?
$20,000.
It'd be similar to like if Snapchat or Facebook wanted to buy a comic book company and they were just wanting to say, hey, we really like his characters, but we want to use it for our products, but we'll pay you like $1 million.
Yeah, it's an app where we outline your penis, and we're going to call it Shadow Man.
Yeah.
Here, check this out. You want to cut up some lines on this Nintendo cartridge? Yeah, that's right. Video game money, motherfuckers.
Right?
Pretty much.
Now I got just a what if for you. I know how you feel about Fabian, and I'm not shocked or whatever, but I think I know the answer. But who do you hate more, Fabian, Nick Zgeza, or Scott Lobdell?
Uh-oh.
Fabian.
Really?
Hands down.
Hands down.
Hands down. Scott did write a decent Blue Beetle issue recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, decent. I'm not saying great, but it had Ted Kord in it. He was like the lead,
Pull it on your heartstrings.
and yeah, it pulled on my heartstrings. So it was like, I think it was like 2 issues or something, but he did write it, and I was like scared. I was like, this is going to be total shit, and it wasn't total shit.
Right.
So I'll give him credit. If Fabian had written it, it probably would have starred Yaimi and 30 other people that he would introduce in that issue and would have no backstory or reference to the goddamn thing, and you'd be lost when you were trying to read it, and it would suck. Just saying.
Sorry, Fabian. This guy's got a real fucking mad on for you.
See, I knew I would get you going when I told you that he was one of the editors,
Son of a
chiefs at the time.
Bitch.
So let's streamline this. So where does Valiant go, and where are they now?
Well, things in the 90s, as we just talked about, weren't going so well. So after a while, Acclaim was having its financial trouble.
Now 20,000 an issue, I could see why.
Yeah.
So around 2004, they filed for bankruptcy. And then in 2005, 2 young entrepreneurs named Devesh...
Well, let's be honest though. In 2004, when they filed for bankruptcy, they had stopped producing comics.
Yes, that's
before
true.
that.
Oh yeah, they stopped producing
years.
Yeah, they stopped producing about 4 or 5 years before.
Because comic shop owners were like, my 25-cent bins are fucking overflowing with your comic books. And
matter of
nobody wants them, Valiant.
Matter of fact, that's a lot of truth to that. And along with the other companies back then, if you bought the books, that's it. There was no refunds. So, matter of fact, that Deathmate series was a huge reason why, unfortunately, a lot of the comic shops went under, because you got all this excess.
And that's $5 a
And
book.
kids
Even
weren't paying
discount.
And they ain't buying it.
$5.
And they ain't buying it. So, of course, you're doomed.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a wrap. But later on, back in 2004, they filed for bankruptcy. In 2005, two entrepreneurs named Jason Kathari and Dinesh Shamdasani, they won an auction to the Valiant Comics library.
They won an auction for
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Interesting enough.
And the funny thing is, there was some weird legal thing going on where another company called Valiant Intellectual Properties, LLC, was trying to get the trademark rights to the Valiant title. So they had to go at it in court for a couple years until they finally resolved it in 2007.
Right.
And then, of course, later on in 2012, they finally relaunched many of the favorite titles like X-Man of War, Archer, and Armstrong. I remember we talked about this in private about how much excited we were. We actually liked the way the new direction they're going. Even brought Jim Shooter back briefly. And so once again, he was booted again for some reason.
Poor Jim.
Hey, that guy's been working steady since he was 13 years old.
By the way, Jim, if you ever want to come on the show, please, you're more than welcome.
Yeah.
We would love to hear your side of the story, sir.
We'll let you say your piece, and then we'll boot you. I'm kidding. You can stay and have beers.
Yeah, you could
First of all, he's a big dude. He'd probably crush your little head.
He'd be like, I'll boot you.
strangle us with his ponytail.
But it's my place.
You know what, though, is interesting, though? Just kind of like, as we've been doing these histories, the companies where the story and the artists and the talent actually, a lot of times we're in Los Angeles where everything's a business, and you always get like talent is secondary, and most of the time it is. But I will always say talent is what sustains you.
Absolutely.
So you might get that in,
and not just artistic talent, but also executive management talent.
Oh, completely across the board.
Across the board.
But I look at companies like Image, and we talked about Dark Horse. That's why these companies lasted, because at the end of it all, yes, they had the wherewithal to kind of branch out, and they took the risk. But at the end of it all, they had the talent. Whether it was the talent that they brought in or that came in. For instance, with Image, like a Robert Kirkman, that they kept the doors open for talent. Where Marvel and DC have all that kind of built-in talent, or these old timers that are still around. But it's not a place that you look to for the new anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No. In fact, Marvel, DC usually get the creators, a lot of them actually, from Image Comics.
Exactly.
We'll go over then to Marvel, DC, because they liked those characters. They grew up with them, and they want to try their hand at them.
Right.
But their bread and butter is in the creations that they've made.
Right.
Yep.
Which is always nice. You know.
Danny Deal and Joe Quesada, they're only going to go so far.
Yep.
Right.
But I think that's it, right, for the whole Valiant universe?
Yeah, I guess that says it all in a nutshell. Valiant, they've been resurrected. They are still out there. They're doing pretty good. You can't complain.
Well, it was a valiant effort.
A valiant effort. And also, as we know, they have greenlit a few projects for.
Yeah, the Ninjak web series thing.
It's gonna be a web series, really?
Oh yeah, it's from Bat in the Sun. Those guys that do yeah. And which, by the way, friends of the Blue Beetle, Ted Cord returns.
Yeah?
Yeah, met one of the guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
You gotta pick up that name I just dropped.
Get it off the floor.
Yeah. Anyway, with that, please subscribe. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, iTunes, YouTube.
Let your family and friends know.
MySpace. I don't think we're on there.
No, we're not on MySpace. But you know where we are? We're at the comic shops, and we'll see